Testing. Yep, that's right. And also putting on Mixer as well. We should be live on both now, or about to be.
And Mixer seems to be kicking in.
Yep, there's Mixer. Pop out the chat.
Mixer seems to be kicking in.
YouTube, just let me know we're live. How exciting! Hello, everyone. We'll be starting in just a sec. If there is anyone there, that is.
Yeah. Where's okay.
Put it over there. Put it over there. Fantastic.
You can talk all about Windows 7, by the way. I'm struggling to care.
I don't have much to say on the subject, if I'm honest. Actually, was there an insider build this week? I should probably
Yes, there was.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Was it? Did it have any new features?
Yes, a graphing calculator.
Oh. Okay, I guess we'll talk about the new build. I'll put that first. New build.
My hair looks kind of normal. It's annoying.
Oh, I hate being normal.
Seriously.
What's the point? It'd be different.
Gross. Your hair looks kind of normal too. Great. All the anti-bedhead people are going to be happy for us.
Oh, what? These guys grew up? Oh.
I had to get off of TikTok for this. You kids and your Tic Tacs. I never been on Tic Tac. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Tic Tac.
You got it right on the money. Well done. This man has kids.
Your Tic Tabs and your dabs. That's still a thing, right? Y'all dabbing.
Tic dabs. Yep.
I'm old. All right, I'm going to send out the tweets.
Cool. I'm going to make sure my mic's working.
I'm sending out a Twitter.
Why do you post to Facebook? Testing 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. That's good.
Oh yeah, I should probably test my microphone too. Because I bet it's actually not in the right one. Oh, it actually is the right one.
Wow.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Tap, tap, tap.
Just put my phone on silent, but I can't be bothered. Oh, you mentioned me. Great. I can retweet from the notification.
So lazy. All right, on my sound settings. Output. All right. Okay. Sure. All right. I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 162 for January 17th, 2020. Yeah, you're laughing because I got the date right?
Well done, you did it.
It's the right year. Yes, everyone, we're back for the Windows Central Podcast, where we talk all things Microsoft, Surface, Xbox, and whatever is happening in news. And I forgot to silence my watch. What an annoying world we live in. Notifications everywhere. My watch is telling me I'm almost done with my fasting because this is super important. And I'm hearing feedback on my... oh, boy, I got to mute my audio. I'm all screwed up today. Anyways, hopefully we will have no problems this podcast here. Anyways, this week we're going to be talking about Windows 7, the end of life. Yes, it is the end of Windows 7. We'll also talk about a new insider build because that always happens as well. And there's been some changes there. And it reminds me, I'm about to put fast ring in my Surface Pro X because it doesn't really matter, I don't think, anymore. Let's talk about Microsoft Edge. It's finally available for general availability. It is out of beta. We'll go through what that means and where Collections is and what that means if you have a Surface Pro X as well. And finally, we talk about Microsoft Launcher Preview. This is an alpha version. Basically, it's an alpha version of the 6X release, the 6.x release of the Microsoft Launcher for Android. We'll go through the changes there, talk a little bit about what's going on with it and more. And then we'll probably finish off with some random tech news as well. Zach, how are you doing on this fine holiday? It's actually not a holiday.
It's not a holiday, you're right. It's a normal work week for us. I'm actually quite tired. Ignite the Tour was here in London this week, so they were here yesterday and today. So I've been at that talking to people and, being all conferenced out at the end of the day.
That's funny. Do they have tour T-shirts for Ignite?
I don't. Oh, I believe they do. I didn't pick one up though. Unfortunately, I've been so busy. I've got some T-shirts, but they're not Ignite branded, which is a shame.
I'm always excited about getting T-shirts, especially for my favorite bands. And then you've never seen me actually in a T-shirt because
I only wear them around the house when I'm not doing anything. So
yeah. They end up being undershirts. So
yeah.
I need to stop buying them. But that's good to hear, at least with Ignite. We also just heard that Ignite for this year for 2020 was announced.
They are going to New Orleans instead of Orlando, which is, I think, they've gone to Orlando a few times now. The last few years, they've definitely been in Orlando. So New Orleans is new for the first time for Ignite, and it's happening in September 21st to 25th this year. So if you are usually somebody who attends Ignite, you can pre-register today, and you'll be going to New Orleans, which is quite exciting. I've never been to New Orleans, so I'm actually super excited to go this year.
Oh, so wait, you're going to Ignite?
Announcement, guys.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've gone to Ignite now. I believe it's 4 times, and it's always been in Orlando, which is a mixed bag. Orlando is like a major city in Florida. Obviously, it's where Disney World is, but there's not much else to do there. Mm-hmm. I mean, so we're just kind of locked at a hotel, although it was kind of cool. There's some good restaurants in there. Yeah. It's funny, too, because I was just getting used to being there, and now they moved to New Orleans, which I've never been to as well, but, New Orleans is a major city. It's very popular as well. So should be exciting. And then we have Build coming up in May. Oh, yeah. Should also point out Mobile World Congress coming up at the end of February. Yep. And I believe, I don't know if Microsoft is going to be there. It's something I got to reach out to them about. But we will likely have some more stuff around PC. It's funny because these shows are been traditionally about smartphones. But as smartphones become less interesting, laptops and mobile connected Windows PCs have been slowly taking over these shows. So, but there's a good chance. Well, actually, you and I will be both going to Mobile World Congress. You've never been to Mobile World Congress, right?
I've not. No. I did IFA last year, which was in Berlin, which was super fun. I'm assuming this is going to be similar to IFA, more like mobile PCs and stuff.
Yeah, Spain, Barcelona is interesting. It's a little bit more intense, I think, than IFA.
Oh, really? Okay, fair.
Yeah, I actually prefer IFA, but it should be good. Hopefully there'll be some announcements around there. I believe Lenovo will have some stuff, which will be kind of interesting. But as we get closer to that, we're just recovering from CES this week, but already planning for that. So, so Mobile World Congress, February, Build in May, was it?
That's correct, May 21st to the 23rd. Oh, sorry, May 19th to the 21st in Seattle as normal, which I'm actually... I'm more excited for Build right now because of the potential of Windows 10X and all of that. I'm hoping they use Build as a stage to actually talk about Windows 10X instead of Azure.
Because we thought that last year too, and there was silence.
Yeah, but they've announced 10X now, so I mean, it makes sense to use Build as the stage to be like, all right, so here's the deal, Windows 10X. But if Build happens and they don't talk about Windows 10X on stage, my head will explode because it's like, if not now, when?
Yeah, it's a good point. And somewhere in between there, we probably will have another Surface event. That's usually how this happens. I wouldn't be surprised if it's after Build, but this idea of like Surface Book 3, maybe Surface Go 2, maybe a new Surface Studio. We don't really know. All those could be happening sometime in the spring, sometime in late summer.
See, if I had to guess, I'd say they'd do the hardware event before Build, only because I'm hearing whispers that the Duo might be made available way before the end of the year. And I'm assuming if they are making it available earlier, Build would be a good time to start shipping devices to developers. So if they had an event before Build, they can be like, here's the Book 3, here's whatever else they want to announce. Plus, remember those 2 foldable devices we announced last year? Here's an update on that. Then they'll talk a little bit about it. And then they'll say at the end of it, if you want to know more, head to Build next week or in a few weeks, and we'll be talking more about these devices there, which I think would be a good way to get people to go to Build.
Yep. No, that's definitely interesting. There is a lot of questions around. We do know with the Surface Duo that, it was originally planned to be a Windows device.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And then they, switched sometime in the last year to Android. And that's where, and we've talked about this on previous podcasts before, Zach's gone through it. This is why we heard basically what we now know as Duo, what was previously known as Andromeda, had been canceled or shelved. But then Zach kept hearing, no, the hardware is still being worked on. And so they switched to Android. And that's but it's Android, right? They're not inventing a new operating system. They're adapting an operating system
You're
to
right. Yeah.
this device. So in theory, yeah, okay, maybe they need like 6 months or a year to make that happen. But then the question is like, why do we need to wait to holiday 2020 for that? Some of that may be because adapting apps to dual screen usage.
Which
At the same time,
I
they
honestly don't.
technically,
Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say technically it doesn't need to happen. Like
Yes,
you
exactly.
can run just regular Android apps on this thing, and it'll be fine. And it'll probably even be better than what you're using lately, which is the Samsung Fold.
Right. So I was actually going to say. So I've been using the Galaxy Fold for about 2 weeks now, and I've noticed having the big screen is really nice. But what I found with the big screen is that I like using it for one app, just seeing more inside one app instead of using it for two apps. I rarely ever use the big screen to run two apps side by side. I'm always running one app, but just with more content on screen. I prefer using it in that way. But if this was a dual screen device, you would just by nature use the two screens for two different apps. I think I would use the Duo more with two apps side by side than one app spanned across both displays. But at the same time, because Microsoft is pushing the whole idea of, we want developers to have apps that do support both displays. I really don't think that's necessary for the Duo. It's nice. It would be nice to have if the user wants it, but if only 5 apps support it and everything else just runs like normal, I'm okay with that too on the Duo.
And it makes specific sense for certain apps. For instance,
Yeah.
email.
Yeah,
Email,
right.
where you have one window would be the list of emails. The second window would be your actual email
Yeah.
content, right? So apps that sort of divide themselves already up like that would be optimized. Whereas something like Instagram, I mean, okay, I could see Instagram. You could have like the image on the right, comments on the other side, but as you point out, it's not absolutely necessary. So, yeah, fingers crossed we get something early with Duo, and maybe it comes out earlier than holiday 2020. There was a picture this week of Satya Nadella holding the Duo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a funny headline with that. But it's go if you haven't seen that photo, go check it out because I don't think people appreciate how thin this device is. But when you see a normal human being holding it, you're like, wow, it's something dramatically different. I'm very excited about the hardware for this. Zach and I were just talking about before we started recording that I've been tempted to get a new Android phone, whether it's the Huawei Mate X, their foldable device, the Samsung, which I'm not a huge fan of Samsung, but still the Fold is intriguing, or even the 5G One Plus phone. Right? I've been sort of like eyeing these, but one, I'm super happy
Yeah.
kind of right now with the iPhone, and two, I know Duo is pretty close. So I don't know if I want to go drop a grand
Yeah.
for $1,500 on a phone I'll use for like 3 months.
I will say though, the One Plus is really nice.
You know what? The reason I haven't done the One Plus though, it still has something which I don't like, which is I have it on the P. Was it the P30 Pro too? I don't like the curved edge
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, definitely.
Do not like it. I have also the what is the thing called? I think it's the oh, now I forgot the was it Mate? I can't keep up with all their names.
I can't even see it, so I can't help you.
Yeah, no, hold on, I'll tell you what it is. It's the Honor 20 Pro.
Okay.
Yeah, this thing. It's basically an iPhone running Android, right? But it's flat. So I
Yeah.
actually prefer this form factor. So that's the only reason I haven't gone with the OnePlus. I really do not like curved edges on my phones.
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan of them either. It's not a deal breaker for me, but if I could have a device without it, I'd go with the one without it compared to the
By the
one with
way,
it.
little preview if you're watching this on video of what we'll be talking about later, which is the new Microsoft launcher, which now does landscape, which is
Wow, that's the thing Windows Phone users were asking for years.
that's true. That's funny. Anyway, that's enough with that was a preemptive. We didn't plan on Surface
Yeah.
Duo discussion, but yeah, I'm actually hopefully the camera. The only thing is the camera.
Yeah, that's the big problem, right? People are so worried about the camera. I was looking at the OG Pixel has a really tiny sensor for its back camera. It's super small. It's the smallest I've seen on a smartphone, I think. A modern one anyway. And that camera, if I remember correctly, was actually really good. I don't think it was the best in class because I don't think Google cared about the camera that much until the second gen. But the original Pixel's camera was pretty good. That gives me hope for the Surface Duo because the Surface Duo's got a tiny sensor as well. But it's all about the post processing. If Microsoft has the
It really is. It's computational these
yeah
days. That's really where I mean, it's both, right? I mean, we know Samsung's about to announce one of their
108 megapixels,
108
yeah,
megapixel, right? So we are still going down that route, but it is still mostly about software optimization. A company like OnePlus has proved that you can do a lot with software
yeah.
optimization. Someone's asking, could all Android phone manufacturers not go down the twin screen route, not folding? No, absolutely. So that's why one reason Microsoft is working with Google on this project is for that. Like, it's a win-win for both companies. But yeah, the idea here is we'll see both types of devices, just like we're seeing it with Windows too. And manufacturers will start exploring doing dual screen devices. So this idea of optimizing apps isn't a Microsoft thing. I mean, they'll benefit from it, but Google will wants that support across the board because in OEMs and other manufacturers can make similar type devices too. It's just Microsoft will technically be there first. And
Yeah.
like I said, this literally has, as far as we know right now, currently, it's the world's thinnest LCD panel ever developed. And you combine that with this hinge, which has the wiring, which are the wiring is basically like threads that go through the hinge. There's a lot of like expertise, like engineering that's been done on this device that no one else has done yet. So, but yeah, that's why this idea of like Microsoft trying to work with developers and Google is super important because yeah, you could see other Android devices out there.
Yeah. I'm super excited.
Yes, definitely. Anyway, let's go to boring news. Windows 7 EOL, it's the end of life. Explain to us what's going on there, why this matters, and who's still using Windows 7.
Yeah, so this is a long time coming. Microsoft has been warning people forever now that Windows 7 is about to exit support if you aren't an enterprise customer paying for extended security updates. That basically means all consumers running Windows 7 as of right now are out of support. Now, that doesn't mean much right now, but if there is an exploit or something that becomes known in the near future or even the distant future, Microsoft is under no obligation to service you. So if you are a Windows 7 user, you are at risk of any exploits or vulnerabilities that are discovered in the Windows code going forward. Now, this is the same thing that happened with Windows XP. Back when Windows XP fell out of support, there was still lots and lots of people using it. But that started to trail off quite soon after support ended, and I'm assuming the same will happen here. We don't know exact numbers for Windows 7 usage today, but based on market share numbers from like advertising companies and stuff, there's an estimated or guesstimated 300 million Windows 7 users still out there connected to the internet, which is a lot of people that Microsoft has just abandoned. But Windows 7 is over a decade old at this point. It's time to let go and move on to other things. With that said, Microsoft did just release a brand new browser for Windows 7. So that's also good to see. Mixed messaging from Microsoft is always the case here.
Well, I mean, to be fair, so there are some caveats here, of course, which is that, yeah, it's officially ended, but companies can literally pay like an extortion fee to
Yes,
Microsoft
so yeah,
for support, right?
those are called ESUs, extended security updates, and it's only for volume license customers, so enterprises. Consumers can't pay for them. Microsoft isn't selling these extended security updates to you, although I believe there is a hack of some kind you can do on Windows 7 which will get you those updates for free. Don't do that. There's no point. Just upgrade to Windows 10. The Windows 10 upgrade is still free, even though Microsoft says it's not free anymore. You can still do it, and Microsoft will give you a valid Windows 10 license. They won't take that away. Once you've got it forever. So if you are on a Windows 7 PC and Windows 10 is compatible, I recommend you do the update. Or just buy a new Windows PC. If you're running a Windows 7 PC, come on, what are you doing? That's an old PC. It's time to move on. Even get a Windows 8 PC. Just move on.
I don't. Yeah, I remember for a while, like companies like iBuyPower would actually offer the option to downgrade to a Windows 7 license.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's not available anymore. I don't think you can sell licenses for Windows 7.
Even if you don't like Windows 10, you can update to Windows 8 or move on to Linux. There are many options. You can buy a Mac if you really want. Just
right.
don't be connected to the internet with a platform that's not as supported anymore. It's just not a good idea,
Which now raises the question, all right, so who's using Windows 7? Now, if you're a consumer, I think most of these people fall into, there's probably the gamers some gamers still prefer just the streamlined aspect.
I think most gamers on Steam's market share reckons that Windows 10 is the most popular platform now, which is good.
Yeah. So, and I think that's because a lot of people end up buying new PCs and it just
agree.
comes with Windows 10. But the idea here was that Windows 7 is not as connected to the internet because it was kind of it doesn't predate it. It was 2009, right, when it came
Yeah.
out. So the internet was definitely around, but Windows 10 is very much more of a connected operating system. So some people prefer that, along with the telemetry. There's also the tinfoil hat people. These are the people who I believe they'll be like, security and privacy is key. And all I'm hearing is, you're on the dark web, right? You're probably buying slaves and like going down the Silk Road and all
Wow.
that. Like, that's really what you're saying. I don't want to lump all these people into that category. That's a little unfair. This is what I hear, though. It's like, I get it. You use Tor, don't you? Like, and what are you doing on Tor?
It's
Is
funny
it
as well.
is it because you really value your privacy, or are you doing shady stuff? But
It's a lot of people don't realize as well that Microsoft actually backported a lot of the telemetry collection stuff from Windows 10 to Windows 7. So Microsoft knows most of what you do in Windows 7 as well as what you would be doing on Windows 10. Listen, if you're on the internet, there is no privacy. Get over it.
yeah, or rather, if you're really doing some illegal, shady hacking stuff, you're probably not using Windows. I mean,
Yeah,
did anyone
you're
watch Mr.
using
Robot?
Linux.
Jeez. It was a great 4-season documentary about a real life hack. Or no, maybe it wasn't.
This
But
is
yeah, air
a
gapped. I
Unix
talked about this
system.
before. The air gapped PCs and using Linux, like those. That's if you want real security, right? That's not saying actually Windows 10 is very
Yeah.
secure in the sense that it's way more impervious now to viruses and infections. It's not perfect though. In fact, this week actually, Windows 10 was patched with a quote unquote major security vulnerability that was pointed out by the NSA. Now, this was a theoretical vector attack, I believe, that could have been damaging, but the news came out and it came out as the systems were being patched. So I think some sites made a big deal out of this. And for me, I don't know. I always find like, yeah, operating systems are going to have vulnerabilities in it. Now, it's one thing to be like, it's got a huge hole. We patched it. There's the news versus like, it's got a huge hole. And then like, if we go by 6 weeks and ransomware attacks happen and people's PCs are screwed, like that's a big deal. But because this all came out at the same time and it was disclosed, it's just, hey, software and security is hard. But yeah. So, and then the other people using Windows 7 are, enterprise, right? So
Yeah.
you have some countries like Ireland, apparently. You have hospitals. You have a lot of scientists too who run very specific software and have very intricate setups that simply doing an OS upgrade would basically break all that. I had some scientists basically tweet at me because I asked this question, and they were saying, yeah, we have like a rare elaborate setup with specific software, and it's all like it's basically perfect. And so like, and I had this experience too. I worked in a hospital where we were doing research and we were running Windows 7 for a long time as well. And it was because of the software was custom made for Windows. This wasn't like downloading, Photoshop. This
Yeah.
was, very precise software. And so messing with that stuff, because with all the specific drivers, it's hard. These companies aren't like doing driver updates every 3 weeks. They do driver updates basically on a per request basis.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this is always an interesting topic to me, the whole like running an out of support OS, because there are areas where it doesn't matter. So if you're running an out of support OS on a device that doesn't interface with a network of any kind, it's not a problem. Like if it's a siloed PC or device of some kind that's still running Windows 7, that PC can run Windows 7 forever. If it does what it needs to do and it's not connecting to a network of any kind, then it's fine. It doesn't need to be serviced with updates. And if it's not connected to the internet, it's not at risk of any attacks or anything. Even if it includes intranet or an internal network, it can't be connected to anything. If it's a standalone siloed device that hooks up to some sort of machinery that does a thing that you need it to do, then sure, that whatever. It's PCs that are connected to networks, of whether they're internal or external. Those are the ones that can be at risk and compromise not just that PC but the entire network. That's why these PCs need to be upgraded, and that's why people take it very seriously. Now, lots of businesses, like you said, are still running Windows 7. I think a lot of them are looking into upgrading to Windows 10, but that takes time. Moving hundreds of thousands of PCs on a domain, it takes a long time to do. So yeah, Microsoft should have started pushing this on businesses long time ago. I think they did, but it just
well, they did. They
yeah
did. I mean, related to this news was other news that came up this week from IDC and I forgot who else, but it was talking about shipments of Windows 10 devices. So for the first time since 2011, in 2019, the entire year was a growth year for PC shipments. Now we've seen in the past over the last few years occasional quarters with little growth, and then it'll flatten out again, and then it'll be a little bit of growth and a little dip here and there. But for 2019, the overall year for all quarters was positive growth, and two companies have both reported that. Now, you can directly attribute most of that to this same question of Windows 7. That is, you have some companies who were like just straight up upgrading to Windows 10. But what a lot of companies were doing they were buying new hardware, because one, Windows 10 is already installed, but don't forget Windows 10 has a hardware component to it, whether it's the latest processors, GPUs, TPM for security, or even something like Windows Hello, right? The ability to, which is very important for a lot of companies to have that authentication and security. And so they end up just buying the latest hardware. So we've seen sort of that uptick. And, IDC and others believe we'll continue to see that through 2020 as some of these companies are still struggling to catch up to Windows 10. So there's that end. I'd also say that in general, PCs have become really interesting again. We've talked about that last week with CES, which went from not very interesting to PCs to it's so interesting that smartphones were pushed aside. And we're entering this new age. I wrote an editorial this week about this, about mobile computing. It's really starting to catch on now, whether we're talking about 4G devices, 5G devices. Everybody's announced sort of 5G support in laptops. HP's Dragonfly, which I still got to finish a review for, but they've already announced a version 2. Now it's basically the same laptop, but it's going to come out with a 5G option later in 2020, powered by Qualcomm's new chipset. And so you're seeing this idea of like, dual screen devices, foldable display devices, 5G connected things, tiny things. Like we're seeing this again, this push into mobile computing. And it's still just kind of funny because, as everybody likes to point out, is we're not in a post-PC era. That never happened, right? PCs are still super important. And so we'll continue to see that. Hopefully, I think what Microsoft would like to see is, as the Windows 7 stuff trails off and these companies buy Windows 10 and then that trails off, at that same time, we'll see an uptick in general consumer interest in these new devices, these new form factors that are small and portable, always connected. And hopefully those will crisscross right at the right same time, so we don't get like a huge drop off in a quarter for PC sales. And that's why I think the next 2 years is going to be really interesting to watch to see what happens there.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it for Windows 7. Windows 7 is finally dead. Rest in peace. It was a great operating system that fixed a lot of the mistakes Windows Vista made and made Windows cool again until Windows 8 came along and ruined it.
Right.
But yeah.
Oh well, that was the history of Microsoft. It was like great OS and bad OS, and okay, it's good again, and now it's bad again. So now they're just sticking with Windows 10, and hopefully we won't have that issue.
Does Windows 10X count as a new one? In that case, it's going to be bad.
Yeah. Speaking of insider builds, what's the skinny on that?
Oh yes, a new build this week, build 19546 in the fast ring. Not too much in this new build. A graphing mode for Windows Calculator, which is an app, which I assume it could just be pushed to any build, but it's in this build for now. So yeah, if you want to do some graphing in your calculator, you can now do that, which is pretty fun. And there's also an indexer diagnostic app in the Microsoft Store, which I actually don't think is specific to this build at all. Yep, they say it can run on Windows 10 version 1809 or higher. And that's pretty much it. Nothing else new in this build worthy of note. The Windows development on the desktop side of things, it has slowed to a crawl. Absolutely nothing going on in the world of Windows right now. That's a real shame. Obviously, as we know, Windows 10X is in development, and that's super exciting. And there's lots of cool innovation and changes going on there. But Microsoft doesn't want to talk about it because they suck.
Harsh. But like I said earlier in the podcast, I'm going to try to put fast ring in my Pro X probably after this podcast to see how it is. But it's not like the same it was 2 years ago. We're putting fast ring on a hardware was like, fingers crossed it all works, and where there's like a lot of experimental stuff. Fast ring right now and slow ring very much are just some minor updates. But I use the Pro X so much, so hopefully it'll be okay. Speaking of Pro X, if you're interested, I did just post a review of the new Panzer glass privacy screen. So this is a very niche product. It's for people who work out in public. I've been using it for the last month, and as I traveled on airplanes, it was actually really nice. It's a glass screen protector you install, and basically, if anyone's sitting next to you on an airplane and they look over to see what you're working on, they're going to basically see a black screen. It doesn't show anything, and it's actually really convenient for that because if you're ever on an airplane, you're obviously very close to the person next to you, and you have Word open with that white background and black text. It's pretty like humans just naturally want to see, hey, what are they writing on? And they look over to see what words. Now, if anyone wants to read like my review I'm writing on an airplane, okay, that's no secret, right? But obviously, some people have more sensitive jobs, or I don't know. Maybe you want to view pornographic material on an airplane. I don't know, but if you want something like that, this is a cool product. It is $60, which is stupid expensive for it. I mean, it's really, really expensive for a screen protector. Especially, I was actually perfectly happy with a matte screen protector I reviewed for the same device a few weeks ago, which cost $8, and you got three of them. But this is high quality glass. It's curved. It's really nice. The cutouts are all perfect too. They also do make a non-privacy version that's $10 cheaper, $50, which is still expensive. These are officially licensed through Microsoft, so they're partnered with them, so the product is really good. But go check out that review. I also have my Instagram. You can see a video of it in action. It's neat. The downside to it is I think it's funny that we spent all this money, these companies spent all this money to make really, really nice IPS LCD screens and, excellent viewing angles. And then we put a piece of glass on it and be like, there, now we reduced the viewing angles again. But this is, I think, interesting because companies like HP have solved this problem through SureView, which is their technology. And it's a combination of hardware and software. And you just like hit a button and now you have your privacy screen. No one can view it. And then when you want to be normal again, you just hit the button, it turns back off. That to me is sort of an awesome solution. I feel like almost all PCs should have an option for. But as far as we know, Microsoft has no comparable offering there. So instead you got to put a piece of glass on your screen. And it stinks because you're going to be 24/7 privacy mode. And it's convenient unless you're like want to show someone a video. You're like, hey, check out this video. And they're like, I can't see anything. Like, oh yeah, that's right. So go check out the review if it's something you're interested in. If you really need a privacy screen protector, highly recommend it, even at the $60. But if you just think it's cool or you just kind of need it, yeah, save your money, get something else.
Guess what went GA this week, Dan?
Oh, was it Edge?
It was Edge. Microsoft Edge is finally done, kind of.
Yeah, so I mean, to be fair here, right? Edge is basically like Windows 10. It's just like the Chrome browser, which is never finished. But this is the baseline. This is the bare minimum they want to get out. It's mostly actually geared for enterprise, right? It's their most important features.
So Microsoft has been very sort of picky about its wording around this launch. They're very much aiming the launch of Microsoft Edge at the enterprise. They're saying that the browser is enterprise ready, and that although consumers can download the browser and start using it today, there will be a more consumer-focused push later in the year, which I'm guessing will be when they introduce things like collections and other features that aren't there yet. Because although the Microsoft Edge is now launched now, it is missing a few things that I think are quite critical to a browser, such as history and extension sync. Those two things aren't there today. If you go and download the new Microsoft Edge, you're not getting those features. They're not there and they're not coming. We don't have an ETA for them either, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, the Microsoft Edge has launched. I did a review of it. I actually think it's a really solid browser that can or could eventually rival Google Chrome because, it essentially is Google Chrome, but the Microsoft...
It actually, there was a couple of people did benchmarks on it this week, standard browser benchmarks, and Edge actually beat out Chrome on quite a few of them. Really? And that's impressive because it's not just... it's as good as Chrome, as in some cases it actually outperforms Chrome. That's not across the board. Chrome, I think, still has certain other features, including sync, everything as you just mentioned. But for what's a 1.0 release, if you want to think of it that way, to the general public, it's a very powerful contender already.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's like I said, it's essentially just Google Chrome with a Microsoft logo, plus a few Microsoft editions on top. It has, like I said, collections coming soon, which is a Microsoft Edge specific feature. It also will have inking at some point as well. All the inking stuff will be coming back. I think it already has inking in the PDF reader and all that.
Right, it does. Yep.
It also has some unique privacy features, tracking prevention. Microsoft is very big on privacy and stuff, and will be building privacy settings right into the browser. Um, it also runs Microsoft Edge extensions, of course, in addition to Chrome extensions. So it has the entirety of the Chrome store if you want to run any Chrome extension. And the process of moving from your old browser to the new browser is super simple. If you're moving from the old Edge to the new Edge, it's actually automatic. Once the new Edge is installed, you don't have to do anything. You just have to consent to the data being transferred, and then it's all transferred. If you're moving from Firefox or Chrome or something, you just have to jump into settings to import your old browser data, but it takes a few seconds, and then everything is exactly where you left it. I really, really, really like this new version of Microsoft Edge. I've been using.
I'd also point out the reading view is really
Oh,
amazing.
yes, it also has the reading view. Yeah.
So this is an idea when you go to a website, including Windows Central, and we bring up an article and you want to remove all the clutter, you hit this button and it basically it's just text, maybe a photo and the title. And it's really good if you want to read like a long like review or in-depth article or something that's going to be, 10 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of reading. It's just a stripped down view. Obviously gets rid of the ads and everything like that. And it's just reading compatibility mode, I think they call it. But it's just an awesome feature that I really appreciate in Edge.
Yeah. It's still also the only browser that supports 4K Netflix streaming, which is nice. It also has Dolby Audio and Dolby Vision support. It has internet.
It does, right. It does support 4K Netflix streaming,
Yeah.
which is big. As far as I know, a lot of other browsers don't.
And yeah, it's the only browser on Windows 10 to support it. So
Yep.
that's pretty big. If you like Netflix, you can use Microsoft Edge to watch your content in 4K.
And I was told that, when it comes, we have a Netflix app in the store, but as it turns out, a lot of people actually just watch Netflix in their browser. And I think this goes back to this idea that people live in their browsers these days. And Microsoft responded to that by making sure that 4K support was there in those kind of features. And so, yeah, the app, I think a lot of us use the app and has abilities like downloading files. But yeah, a lot of people are just using Netflix on the web.
Yeah. It also has an Internet Explorer mode built in. So this is sort of pivoting over to why Microsoft thinks this browser is ready for the enterprise. It has a whole bunch of enterprise-related features that aims to make using the browser simpler for the enterprise, and also using one browser for the enterprise. Because in the past, a lot of enterprises have legacy websites and portals that their employees need to access, and they might be Silverlight or based on a very old technology that Internet Explorer can render, but not new browsers. So in the past, you'd be thrown back and forth between Edge or Chrome and Internet Explorer, which is why Internet Explorer still ships in Windows 10 today. But now with the new Microsoft Edge, there is an Internet Explorer mode built right in, and this only works on PCs where Internet Explorer is still supported, so Windows 8 and Windows 10. This will not work on Windows 7. But if you navigate to a web page that requires Internet Explorer, that will now just render in a tab within the new Microsoft Edge, which is super nice. There's also things like Application Guard, Microsoft Search in Bing, dedicated new tab pages for your enterprise and Azure Active Directory accounts, and all of that good stuff as well. But like I said, overall, I think this is a really good browser. It's a very solid start. There is still a few things missing. There's a lot missing if you were a huge fan of Microsoft Edge's old features that made it unique, such as to set tabs aside, inking on web pages, and all of that good stuff. Inking on web pages is coming back. Not too sure about set tabs aside. Microsoft has sort of been very coy about answering that question, which I assume means it's not coming. And collections is a sort of spiritual replacement for that anyway. But yeah, it is a solid start for the browser. Now, regarding when it will be coming automatically, users can download it manually today, and Windows will deal with it. It will replace the old Edge with the new Edge, and you can go about your day. Over the coming months, Microsoft will start rolling out the new Edge as an update through Windows Update, which will automatically replace the old Edge. So that's not happening today. There's lots of reasons around that, but primarily because they just want to make sure the new browser is working for everybody. And they want to get a few more features in before they start pushing it as an automatic update, which makes sense to me.
Sorry, I was trolling our readers on the YouTube channel.
Really? Oh, we should talk about ARM being in the beta channel now.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask if you talked about that because I was.
Yeah, no, it's in the beta channel, and which means it should be in the stable channel in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, so when it comes to collections, I was told, I asked about collections. They said one, it's a very popular feature. People really enjoy using it, and because of that, they want to make sure it's polished and really finished before it goes out to general release. Hence why it's still in beta. Now, the beta channel is updated every 6 weeks, so the next update will be 6 weeks from now.
Hmm.
And presumably those features will move, like collections will move to the general release channel. That's why I'm hearing the rough timeline is for collections, as well as things like some of the inking stuff. And the inking, I don't know if it'll be as robust right now as what it's in the old Edge, but they're moving towards that. I think, the Surface team is very much on board with pushing Edge. I know myself, I don't use inking a ton. When I do, I really want it in the browser, right? Because that's where I feel like I'm going to use it most often. Um, and then, yeah, so ARM64 version. So ARM64 support for the new Edge started in Canary and moved to the developer channel, dev channel 4 weeks ago. This week it moved now to the beta channel. That too, I was told by Microsoft, roughly 6 weeks. So again, that makes sense if you look at the beta channels is as 6 week update. So that'll move there. So now if you're running a Surface Pro X or even an older Qualcomm PC, how this works is simple. If you're running Edge, Canary, Dev, or Beta, it'll just auto update and it'll switch to the ARM version. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to uninstall and reinstall. It'll just switch to it. The way you can tell to make sure you're actually running it is pretty simple. Go to your Edge settings, hit the little menu, go to settings, about Microsoft Edge, and where the version number is, it'll say in parentheses 64-bit. The only way you can run 64-bit on an ARM device is if it's ARM 64. It does has 32-bit. That's fine. You're running the 32-bit version. It runs an emulation. It's just not being as optimized. But yeah, so this will go out to general availability in about 6 weeks. It's good because, Microsoft, the idea of Microsoft bringing its stuff to ARM is super important.
Yeah.
But I've been running, I run the Canary version and it's fine. It doesn't crash. I've never been in a web page and just like the browser closes, right? That's, I think, the worst fear. I've never had any issues with Canary
Yeah.
on. So
I've been running the release candidate since November when they released it, so I could do the review because I wanted to make sure I was reviewing the product that would ship rather than the features that will be coming later, because there is actually quite a bit of a difference between the Canary all the way down to beta. Canary's getting new features all the time, in and out, in and out. The beta ring, it's not really fair to call it a beta ring. What it should be called is the release preview ring, because
sure.
it's
Yeah. It's a release candidate.
Yeah, exactly. The beta ring is basically, here's what we're going to be shipping in 6 weeks' time. Make sure it works, and that's basically what it is. And then obviously the stable channel is also updated on a 6 weeks cadence, which means 12 weeks from when a feature goes into beta to being actually shipped to the. No, actually, that doesn't make sense. Oh no, it does. Yeah, it's about 12 weeks. Yeah, so yeah, that's how it works. Regarding Microsoft Edge on Xbox and HoloLens, Microsoft still will not comment on that. We have no idea how that's going to work because the new Microsoft Edge is indeed a Win32 program. Xbox, in its current state, doesn't run Win32 programs. Neither does HoloLens 2. But that could change in the future with Windows Core OS and the whole.
Yeah, the HoloLens,
sandboxing
though, the HoloLens 2 is ARM64, so that should be able to happen. Yeah, someone's pointing out, yeah, Canary once had a problem with YouTube. Yeah, I remember that. But the cool thing about Canary is it's updated almost every day. So usually whenever there is like a glitch and a problem, and I've had them on a few times, it's literally, if you just report it, you have a little button, just report it. It usually does get fixed within 24 to 48 hours. I've never had really one that lasted too much longer than that. So, but that was also an exception, I think. So, and the cool thing is, if you really want to live on the edge, you can install all four versions independently, and they will all run independently of each other, which is super cool. And you can just choose whichever one you want as your default. If you want to run Canary as your default or the regular version, you can go ahead and you can just jump between. You can pin all four of them to your taskbar. So really the choice is up to you, but you don't need to worry about it. If you're on an ARM device, go install the non-ARM version, the official release, and leave it there. And then when it comes out, it'll just be automatically updated. You don't need to do anything. So it's good. And reception so far has been really positive from this. And I think it really comes down to, a lot of people are like, well, why bother installing it? I think, for some people, some of us don't like being in the Google ecosystem where you have to log in and, things are being tracked there. And, Plus if you're like me on the Surface Pro X, I don't want to run 32-bit emulation. I want to run ARM64 native. So there's that. But yeah, when you go to the Microsoft one, you're more the Microsoft login. Your stuff syncs between your devices. So if you're running Edge on iOS and Android, your history syncs there. And those are really good browsers as well, too. They're highly reviewed in the store. Don't take my word for it. Just go see what people are saying. The design is cool. You get dark mode. I love actually Edge. And we should point out Edge on mobile, iOS, Android, is technically it's different development branch than Windows, so it has its own features, but it has like NewsGuard built in. It has an ad blocker built in. It has the reading mode built in. It has notifications for news. It even has like a coupon thing. So it has like some like really kind of unique features for mobile, and that I think adds tremendous value over using something like Chrome. But as Zach pointed out, if you're using this on say Windows and you use Chrome, like you can import all your history, and then you can also run all your Chrome extensions if you want too.
Yeah.
And that really makes it just like, it's a personal choice, but hey, give it a shot. I mean, I love, by the way, if you want some recommendations, I was telling Zach before, I run Nano Ad Blocker. I run the Great Suspender, which is a really neat app. It suspends your tabs in the background. I find this pretty valuable on mobile devices because browsers can actually use significant battery life and CPU usage. So what this does is it basically pauses your tabs after a certain amount of minutes. You can actually set it, and it basically frees up memory, frees up CPU usage, and then it keeps the page there. Though you just click it and it'll refresh the screen and it's back again. There's also, of course, the Dark Eye, which gives you dark mode on everything, which is kind of cool. And I also use Smile Amazon, which is good. I do Amazon. Every time you make a purchase on Smile Amazon, they donate a portion of that to a charity of your choice. But the problem is if you go to Amazon.com to go buy something, it doesn't default. So you have to remember to type in smile.amazon. This plugin basically takes over, and because every time you type in Amazon or you open a link, it'll redirect you to your Smile. So every purchase I'm now making through Amazon I donate to ASPCA for taking care of our little furry friends. But you can choose whatever you want to donate to. So that's just a few. We should probably do a roundup post on our favorite plugins.
Awesome. So that's pretty much it for Microsoft Edge. Like I said, the next update for stable will be in about 6 weeks' time, and that should introduce collections and ARM support, plus a few other minor things here and there. And that's the good thing about this new browser. It can be updated independently from the OS. So even though the initial browser will be delivered through Windows Update, once it's on your PC, it will update itself every 6 weeks. It won't need to talk to Windows Update again. So that's really good. Regarding when the new Edge will be actually in the OS as the default browser, because as of right now, 20H1 and I'm assuming 20H2, the old Microsoft Edge is still built in, and when you clean install that version of Windows, or if you buy a new PC with those versions of Windows pre-installed, you will have the old Microsoft Edge until you either manually download it or download the update through Windows Update. So I asked Microsoft, hey, when do you expect that to be replaced with the new Edge out of box? And they don't really have an ETA, but next year is seeming a little bit more likely. So 21H1, 21H2 will probably be when we see the new Microsoft Edge actually in box inside the OS and shipping. But that's not a big deal for most people.
Yeah. And someone's pointing out Honey's built into, I believe it's the Edge for Android, but it's not on Edge for iOS, which is weird. And it's not in Edge for PC. So this gets into the whole weird, like these groups are still, they're still developing Edge in their own kind of way. Yeah. But Honey is, if you never use it, it's a really neat app. It basically finds the lowest price. And I think they were just valued at like a ridiculous amount of money too. So, but yeah, that's some of the cool stuff you can get with using Edge. It's funny but we talked about this in the past too. Like no matter how good Edge is, convincing people to switch over is like really hard. It's sort of like, it's getting people to move their house, basically. They're like, yeah, but I'm kind of comfortable here. We've talked about this with our managing editor who was on the Surface Pro X, and he's using Chrome. He was complaining. We're like, just go to the new Edge. It runs beautiful. He's like, and then he tried it, and it was like, oh, this is actually really nice. But it's funny how, that first impression when you launch a browser, you're like, I don't know if I like the layout. It's weird. And you fall back to, your old habits. That said, I recently tried Firefox because Firefox does also have an ARM64 version. Firefox is pretty tight. That's a nice looking browser. Like, I really like the way that looks. And it's got some really cool features as well. And of course, Opera is no slouch either, but I just like having the option, right? I still use Edge because I'm syncing across all my devices. I like all that, but I've been occasionally using Firefox and ARM just because the performance is really nice. So it's nice to see all the stuff kind of coming together, though. So
You know what else is really nice? The new
the launch,
Microsoft launcher.
yeah. So walk us through this. What first of all, are we correct in calling it kind of an alpha?
Yeah, Microsoft itself is calling it an alpha, so I guess that's pretty accurate to describe it. Yeah, so Microsoft this week unveiled a brand new version of the Microsoft Launcher called Microsoft Launcher Preview in the Google Play Store. Which is a separate listing from the standard Microsoft Launcher, which you can go and download, and which is interesting because the standard Microsoft Launcher has a beta program. You can sign up for it within the Play Store, and you'd get new beta builds of the Microsoft Launcher every so often with new features before they ship to the actual production line. That's also in the Play Store. But now there is a Microsoft Launcher Preview app, which is in the Google Play Store. And this is specifically for this version of the Microsoft Launcher, Microsoft Launcher 6.0. And the reason for this is because it's not a complete rewrite, but it's a sort of major rewrite in several areas. So much so that your old backups and data don't transfer to this new one. It's a brand new sort of launcher experience. Right. They've rewritten lots and lots of things here and there to make it faster. It's much more performance, much cleaner. The UI is much, in my opinion, way more sexy than the old one. And way more stuff. It's got landscape mode now as well. The dark mode is a bit more consistent.
Cortana is gone from the US version, but I don't know if that's I don't know if that's planned.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's gone for good.
I wouldn't be surprised either
because they want to remove it from the old one. So I don't know. Anyway, so the new Microsoft Launcher here is in alpha. It is quite a bit buggy. A few people have been complaining about bugs. It seems fine to me. It does sort of sometimes the search UI doesn't load properly and whatnot, and some of the UI bits aren't final. But that's okay because it's alpha.
I'm not using Android full time, but I do have it on 2 or 3 phones, including, as I pointed out, this Mate 20. It's been fine for me. I don't love everything. The design is different, and let's talk about that for a sec. So this feels like, and I believe it is a recoded version, and it actually feels lighter and faster.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, mm-hmm.
And so there's, I think, a couple reasons for that. For one, I think a lot of this is driven simply by Surface Duo, right? It's got the launcher on there has got to be really, really nice. It's got to be fast and fluid. And I mean, launcher already felt quick to me, but this definitely feels even lighter. So I think it's being driven by that. There's also this idea that launcher, Microsoft Launcher, started off as Microsoft Aero, which was originally a garage project, right? Yeah. It was something that was started off as like a thing. Hey, we'll try it. We'll put it out there. It ended up getting very good reviews. And once Microsoft phone strategy shift, and that is when this phone started dying off, they're like, let's do this thing where we put all our premium software onto Android and iOS. And they decided, well, screw it, let's put our own launcher out there. And it was kind of a big gamble because one thing you could say about Android was there's a lot of good launchers out there. So the competition was actually pretty stiff. But Microsoft was like, let's put our launcher on there. It'll be tying it all to the Microsoft services. It'll work, and it turns out it actually worked out very well. Launcher is actually one of the most popular apps right now. And actually, while we're talking, I'll look up I haven't looked up the stats for a while on this. But you could also argue that they started off from a base and it was good. But now they're like, well, we got to really make this really top notch now. So we're going to kind of rewrite it again. And it doesn't change the fundamentals. I feel like 75% of it is very familiar, even 80%. Mm-hmm. But the core features, they're kind of like really going out of their way now to give it real serious attention. So just real quickly, so this has a 4.6 rating on the store for Android, and I don't know I can't see all the feedback for it because I'm in the beta, but it's 4.6 out of 5 rating, and I know it's got like millions of downloads. So it's amazing how fast it caught on.
Yeah, and like I said, this new launcher I actually think is a really good evolution of the launcher, because I was one of those people who found the old Microsoft launcher to be quite bloated almost. It's hard to describe what the old Microsoft launcher. It's nice to look at and it operates well, but it just seemed a bit bloated. I could never put my finger on as to why, but this one doesn't feel like that. It feels very clean, very lightweight, super fluid. And this is the Microsoft launcher that will ship on the Duo. This is the launch experience for the Duo device. In so much so that if you actually go to the sticky notes area, there's an option to ink into the sticky notes now, which will obviously go hand in hand with the Surface Duo's pen. That's super exciting to see. There, a few people have been digging around the code for the new launcher, and they found, specific Duo code for dual screens and being able to manipulate the Duo in certain postures and whatnot. So this is definitely the Duo launcher, and that's super nice to see. And it's cool of Microsoft to give, I guess, enthusiasts an early look at some of those experiences that you will be able to have on the Duo when that launches later this year. But yeah, I actually really like the new launcher. There's new app open animations, which are very subtle, but I prefer them over the old one. The new dock UI is kind of nice as well. Very simple right now. They might reintroduce some things in the future, but the UI is so clean. The new apps list is clean as well. The search bars are all clean. Everything's clean in it, and I love it.
Well, we'll see how long that sticks together. Yeah, the app list, I'm a little like, it's okay. For me, it's just like, I don't like how I see 5 icons across, but the names all get cut off. Although maybe I could change that.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that is a weird thing that Microsoft Launcher does. Most
Yes.
launchers will just put the text in the line below it or something, or just shrink the text size in general.
Yeah.
I don't know why it
But
does that.
yeah, and the landscape feature, that's kind of interesting. I don't need it on a regular phone, but if you think about this as being designed primarily for the Duo, landscape obviously makes a lot of sense since
Yeah,
that can operate as a clamshell kind of device. That's what I'm really looking forward to. This idea of like using the Duo as like a
a
clamshell for
baby
thumb
laptop.
typing. Yeah, like for thumb typing. I can
Yeah.
just imagine holding it like a sidekick, right? And just being able to text that way. I mean, I can't imagine they're not focusing on that experience. And this is where Swift keyboard comes into play as well as launcher. But I'm really looking forward to being able to use my device like that. Yeah, so it's all kind of good stuff. But technically alpha, so if you rely on a device every day and you may want to avoid using this right now. I've had no major issues with it, but I have had people say on some older hardware that they've had problems. But that's
Yeah, and
expected.
you will have
So,
to set up your home screen again because, like I said, it doesn't import your
yeah,
old launcher backup, which is
and I haven't found a
a
way to
pain point
change
for a
the
lot of people.
icons,
There is a way to. So I don't
but
know if
not
you can.
individually, right?
No, not individually. You can do the whole
Yeah,
icon pack thing if you go into settings. But they
yeah.
did say so in the changelog. They do say a lot of the features that are in the current shipping version of Edge aren't here yet in the alpha because they're rewriting a lot of things. So lots of features had to be taken out so they could rewrite them. And I assume a lot of features were taken out because they just aren't necessary, or Microsoft doesn't want to include them in version 6.0. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see which of those features do make it and which of those features don't. I assume the icon pack one will come back because that's a big deal to a lot of people being able to change individual icons.
We have, as someone pointed out, 900 viewers on Mixer right now. I believe Channel One maybe
Yep.
is
It's channel one.
broadcasting us. Thank you, Channel One. So if you're new to us, hey, we're talking Windows and Microsoft. I guess maybe we could talk about
I'm
Xbox.
trying to think of any Xbox topics. I can't think of anything this week. I guess we could talk about how Sony won't be at
No,
E3.
no, no. The console streaming went wider this
It
week.
went wider, did
Yes.
it? Oh, did it?
Well,
So what countries now?
I don't know. It's more of them though. I haven't had a chance really to do the cloud
Hang on,
streaming
let's see.
stuff as much. We were at CES and we did play with Razer's new controller, which was built for game streaming with Xbox, and it worked really well. Actually, Dan Thorpe Lancaster, our news writer, had never tried it before, and he was actually really impressed with playing some games on there. So, like, yeah, the game streaming stuff is coming along nicely. We still are expecting a ability to do this on Windows 10 devices probably in the next couple weeks, I imagine. And so that's going to be a big deal. That's a big deal for me because, as we all know, I keep talking about the Surface Pro X, which is ARM. And I think a game's fine for the games I want to do mobile, which is basically side scrollers and platformers and some roguelike type games. But when you throw in game streaming on that device, now I can play all AAA titles from my Xbox right on the Pro X because you just pair it with an Xbox controller and you're good to go. And that's going to be, I think, a really fun experience. One that I'll probably end up leveraging more. Playing Destiny 2 or Gears of War 5 on the Pro X with that awesome display. I think is going to be really tight. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be interesting to see Microsoft's strategy going forward for Xbox because they seem to be breaking the mold, right? We do know they're going to be at E3. Sony this week said they're not going to be at E3. Not a surprise, really. So all these companies are kind of jockeying around where to get the most exposure. And Microsoft's been surprising us. We saw what the new Xbox One Series X looks like. We're getting more details about it. Sony showed us what their new logo is going to look like. I believe some leaks came out this week about what the PlayStation 5 looks like, and it's actually kind of an interesting design.
Oh,
It's
really?
very
I didn't
post.
see that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of very postmodern. Yeah. Whereas Microsoft's going for a minimalist, I would say brutal minimalism. If you can do that, it's like a very German hardcore design. It's built strictly to be a fan and cool this thing off, and so it's quiet. Whereas Sony one looks like cubic almost. It looks like something I think it would come out of like a French school of art or something. But it'll be interesting to see how that is. You and I, we both don't play the console war stuff. If I'm just one of those people like you just play the games where you want to play the games. If that's Switch, Xbox, Sony, or PC, go for that, right?
Yeah. So real quick regarding the xCloud announcement this week. So xCloud is now supported in beta in every country where Xbox One is supported, and that includes, I'm pulling up a list now. Oh, that's a long list. I'm not going to read all of that, but it's a lot of countries. So if you are looking to try out xCloud and you have an Xbox One already in a country where it is supported, then you can actually sign up for the beta and start trying that out today, which is super exciting. I actually think xCloud's getting closer to launch. There's lots of games on it now. We're still waiting for a desktop client, which would be nice to see. Whether or not that will be a UWP app or not remains to be seen.
Yeah, that'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But we've heard internally they've been testing on the Pro X, and it works very well on that device. I've heard from a person too saying the same thing. It plays very well. Now, Microsoft is not expecting people to go buy the Pro X to game. It's a really expensive thing to do. But as someone who loves the Pro X, I'm really looking forward to having that side benefit of being able to do this. So I was asking a good question. Lockhart. Lockhart rumors are coming back. So this was. You want to explain what Lockhart, how that started, what happened, and what we're hearing now?
So Lockhart was. So when we first learned about Project Scarlet, I was hearing that it was two consoles, Anaconda, and Jess was hearing this actually as well, Anaconda and Lockhart. Anaconda was going to be a more expensive product, and Lockhart was going to be a cheaper one, a sort of more entry-level device for those who don't want to splash out, $400, $500 for a console, but do want to be part of the next generation. But then it sort of got a bit weird around those rumors, and then for a little while we thought only Anaconda existed, which ended up being Xbox Series X, and Lockhart had been sort of cancelled or whatever. But then there were more rumors that suggested, oh no, it hasn't been cancelled, it is still in the works. And that leads us to today. I'm not sure what exactly you want to talk about, because I don't know if we can talk about it.
Well, we're hearing that it could be some code was found, right? And
I don't know if we're allowed to talk about it. So
okay. Yeah, the important thing here is Lockhart sounds like it's still kicking around.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that we've seen patents before from Microsoft. Razer's been kicking ideas around for a while. And we've seen even Dell's prototype Project UFO. It's a handheld Windows 10 device that's built for gaming. And, I've been saying forever Microsoft should release like a Switch, right? A Switch that plays Xbox games. And that was even before xCloud was announced. And now with xCloud on the horizon, that kind of opens up the door for all sorts of different possibilities. It could be, for instance, a 5G device, right? It just streams, or maybe it has a way of playing more local games as well under certain conditions. And so I would still like to see Microsoft do that. And there's signs that Lockhart could be that, but we don't really know much about it at this point. I think it is interesting. This could be. We've also talked about in the past that Lockhart could just be a lower price SKU. Yeah. And they're waiting to hear what Sony announces as its price for PlayStation 5. And then at that sort of last minute, Microsoft comes out and goes, oh, well, we got a lower price SKU now too. That could happen. They may not want to do that. They don't have to, because technically that could eat into the market share for Series X in general. But Series X implies there could be multiple devices there. Microsoft has said as much. On the other hand, this idea of maybe a portable system that's handheld, I think is super interesting. More so when you think of the fact that, Surface and the, Panos Panay, his division, does a lot of the hardware design now for Xbox. It started with the Xbox One S and went with the X, Series X as well. And so you've seen this sort of like, that's one of the reasons why it's so clean and minimalist and just awesome looking, right? And so the idea that maybe the Surface team and Xbox are working on like a mobile version, I don't know, like we've always joked about that with the Surface team. They probably have 10 projects that are kicking around, and
Yeah.
we don't know if they're going to be released or not, but I can't imagine they haven't thought about doing something with gaming now that they're working more closely with the Xbox team. Like, how does that conversation not come up, right? Panos and Spencer are hanging out, and they're
Yeah.
like, hey, should we do a handheld thing? What? Like, that's stupid. Why would we want handheld gaming? Um, so I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to think about, though.
I assume the Duo itself will have xCloud streaming built in, which will be fun. But I would also love a dedicated Xbox handheld that does not only game streaming, but sort of local gaming as well of some caliber.
Sure.
Because I like the idea of the Nintendo Switch. But I just don't. I'm not part of the Nintendo ecosystem.
Yeah,
I'm just not in. I'm not there.
yeah. I mean, I talked about the Switch before too, how I thought it was dumb, and then I got one, and now I'm like kind of hooked on it. But the Switch is, 720p. I think it's overpriced for what you get. It's cheap plastic. It doesn't feel amazing. Battery life's okay on it, right? But it's there's nothing else like it right now in the market. And I tell people the reason I use Switch is not for Nintendo IP, although the new Mario, was it no War no, which is the Haunted Castle game that's out
Mm.
there. Is actually pretty fun. But I buy it because a lot of the Steam indie games that are on there, which I just really enjoy. But now those are popping up into the Microsoft Store through the PC Game Pass that's out there. And I'm finding that like, oh, these are the titles I actually really want to play. And so, yeah, I mean, if they made a handheld system, it does the streaming, obviously. Maybe there's a 5G option, and it can download those Xbox PC Game Pass titles to it, at least some of them, right? Obviously, you're not going to be playing Gears of War 5 locally on this thing. But if you could do a lot of these like platform and more casual type games offline, man, that's a cool device. I'm buying that. I've said it before. What's cool about gaming right now is old people like me actually have disposable income. So the idea of going like, okay, here's a handheld system, it's $500, but it's got like, a 2K screen, 5G, it can play local and streaming games, all Xbox. Yeah, I'm interested in that. If it gets decent battery life, yeah, sign me up for that thing, right? Whereas 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it would have been, I'd almost say it was unheard of, but we did have a PlayStation PSP for a long time.
Yeah.
I had one of those.
I had the PSP as well. I loved the PSP. The PSP
Yeah,
was
the
great.
cartridges, they were kind of intriguing because they're like, it's a mini CD.
It's a little
But
disc, yeah.
but it was still a pain to have physical media.
Oh
But
yeah.
we're beyond that now, and so like if we can get something like that with Xbox and designed by the Surface team. Oh, come on! Like
Yeah.
it baffles me. Again, it's like a wearable how they're not thinking about making that kind of device. But until we hear anything more officially, or Jez gives us some solid reporting on it, just
Yeah, well,
speculation.
do want to say that we're not saying this is exactly what we've been hearing. There was some code that suggested Lockhart has a built-in display of some kind, and that could mean anything, of course. But yeah, it would be really nice if there was a handheld Xbox, because I'd buy that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, because if you think about also something like 10X is really built for optimized mobile experiences,
Mm.
really low overhead. It's a lighter operating system. So you got that. You have Intel Lakefield's chipset coming out now, which is, again, it's a hybrid system built for mobile devices, supposed to be very good for battery life. It's smaller nanometer, so it's very tiny. Intel's even actually making GPU, like actually like better GPUs now. Now, those aren't out. And remains to be seen how good they are. But Intel's actually finally starting to take integrated graphics seriously because of NVIDIA. But then again, maybe you don't even need NVIDIA, right? Because Microsoft has definitely partnered now with AMD as well as NVIDIA on doing graphics. And so I'm just saying there's like all these parts, and you get 5G in there as well with Qualcomm. it's all coming together, which is why you saw Project UFO from Dell. Obviously, Dell's thinking about this stuff too. So I don't know. I find it hard to believe that some company won't have something here that fits all this, especially when you throw in the PC Game Pass into that mix, which we're also here is doing quite well. I don't know. Could be a very exciting year for handheld gaming. Fingers crossed, we'll see that. A lot of people, before we're going to switch to Q&A in a few seconds and end the podcast, but quickly, someone's bringing up Surface earbuds, the Surface Buds. Not much new to report. It's still, spring 2020, so probably a couple weeks, couple months. I'm sure we'll hear something soon about it. Will be still available in 2 colors on launch in pretty much all the Surface countries versus just America. Pricing hasn't changed as far as we know. $250, still expensive. As far as we know, no noise canceling. By its design, it's meant to be sort of open ear in the sense that the way they sit in your ear hole, it doesn't go into your ear canal. The idea is that you wear these at the office, and if Jane or Bob comes up to you and wants to talk, you don't need to pull this out because you'll be able to hear ambient noise around you. That also has the benefit of being wearable all day. You're supposed to be able to wear these for 8 hours without ear fatigue, and having that in your ear canal doesn't do that. In fact, a lot of people have complained about the new iPod, AirPods, what are they called? The new Pro versions do get uncomfortable. And the only reason I bring up the in-ear canal stuff is because that's kind of one way you guarantee noise cancellation, right? Is you physically block out the sound, and then you throw in some hardware and algorithms. So as far as we know, no, these won't have that feature. Maybe that's going to change, but there's no reason to think that's going to be the case. But hopefully we'll have more on earbuds in the coming weeks and months as we head into spring. So with that said, Zach, any final words for next week?
No. No, so next week, actually, I'm actually doing a write-up on a few things where I'm hoping to see in Surface Duo, because I've been thinking about this a lot recently. 5G, not a requirement, but it would be nice to have. I'm on a 5G plan now in the UK, and I'm paying for 5G, so to go back to a 4G phone after upgrading to 5G is going to be a pain in the backside. Also, I'm really, 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 really hoping for wireless charging. That's another big one. I have wireless charging set up around my whole living space, and if the Surface Duo doesn't support wireless charging, all of that would have been for nothing. I'm not too bothered about the bezel thing. The bezels can stay as they are. They will stay as they are. In fact, we know the design is final. The camera stuff as well is obviously hoping. I'm hoping the camera is good. It doesn't have to be great. It's just good is fine. Anything less than good is there's going to be problems. Is there anything else I'm really hoping? Oh, good haptics. That's a big one to me. Haptics are very important for me in phones now. And if I go back to a phone that has a terrible haptic motor, I genuinely hate it. So if Duo has a bad haptic motor, I'm going to be really, really sad, because this is the Surface team's first smartphone. So I'm going to be interested to see how well they nail the basics on day one, like good haptics, a good screen, hopefully OLED. Do we know if it's OLED on the Duo?
We don't. We've asked. They wouldn't specify. Yeah. I will say, if you told me if it was OLED, I would have believed it. Yeah. It's a very nice display. Like, it's just very punchy and contrasty. But we've also seen LCD has gotten extremely good too. I mean, Apple's sort of proven that. Yeah. So it could be either or, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's OLED, because OLED does, I believe,
saves on battery as well.
Yeah, allows thinner design. Yeah, and that's the question too, is battery life, right? So like, we're seeing phones now come with easily 4,000 milliamp batteries, and this thing is pretty thin, so it does sort of make you wonder, how good battery life is. I would say Microsoft's been pretty good lately with straddling that fine line between. They've never had like amazing battery life, but the Surface devices of recent have been on that cusp, which is why you see some people say it's not enough and other people saying it's just fine. Like you almost find that like it's cut down the middle. The Pro X is a really good example of that. Pro X, being an ARM device, doesn't get like 15 hours of battery life, but it's just good enough for me where I can use it the whole day and not have to complain. So it's like, would I accept more battery life? Sure. Is it enough for me to like not use it? No, absolutely not. So I'm hoping they find that right balance there too for this.
Yeah.
And as far as the processor, it was shown off with the Snapdragon 855, but as I pointed out, that was before the 865 was announced. So Microsoft couldn't come out and say, oh, it's going to have an 865, which It's never been announced before, even though you all know it's coming. I would be shocked if it doesn't ship with the 865. So
See, I wouldn't put it past Microsoft. I have a feeling they will ship it with an 855. I genuinely
if
do
they
think they'll do that.
they totally could. They could do it the 855 4G and 865 with 5G version,
Later, yeah, maybe. Mm.
but yeah, who knows? Who knows at this point? It's all a mystery until we hear more. That said, we're going to switch to Q&A right now. So if you have questions, start firing them off on Mixer and YouTube, and we'll get to those in a few minutes. If you're listening to this recorded, however, this is where the podcast ends. Sorry about that. If you would like to join our live podcast, though, and get some Q&As with us, you can always listen in at Fridays, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on mixer.com/Windows Central, or you can join us on our YouTube channel, Windows Central as well, and hop in there and have us. You can also watch our goofy faces. It's a lot of fun. As always, though, we do appreciate you guys tuning in. You can follow me on Twitter at Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. Same thing for Instagram, where we share lots of insight and stuff there. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN and shoot him your Windows 10 and 10X questions there. And until then, we'll see you next Friday. Take care, everyone.
So yeah, question time. Someone's asking, shouldn't both the Neo and Duo have wireless charging? We already know they both push wireless charging for the Surface Pen. It wouldn't be too much more to enable them to receive power. Well, we only know that the Neo charges the pen. We actually don't know if the Duo charges the pen. They didn't showcase that. They never said it does. And as far as I can tell, the pen is actually taller than the Duo's actual height. So I don't think it does charge. But I could be wrong. Maybe it does. But they've not confirmed that. They've not shown that. They've not said that's what the case. They've only said that is the case on the Duo. On the Neo.
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed on wireless charge.
Dan appears to have cut out entirely. Let's just name this before I fix that. Am I dropping frames? No, I'm still connected. So it is Dan. Okay, I'll just hang up and call him back. Hello.
Yeah. Did you hang up or?
No, well, I had to hang up on you because you just completely cut out.
Weird. I started uploading a file.
Oh, that's
might have
what
been.
it was. Yeah, you cut out just as you was about to talk about your opinion on wireless charging, I think.
Oh, okay. So I was saying that it's not a deal breaker for me, wireless charging. I'll obviously never turn it down if it's.
He's done it again. Look at that. You've cut out again. I don't know if you can hear me.
Wow.
Okay, well, I received the file now, hopefully. Are you done uploading?
I deleted that file, so hopefully it won't upload now.
Okay.
I don't know why it would do that. All right, I give up. Wireless charging. It's cool. I don't need it, but it's nice to have. Duo does have a glass back, so
Right.
it, in theory could have it, but could they fit that coil in there? I don't know. So
It's so thin.
it really is thin. I don't think people appreciate that. Also, talking about the X1 Fold being thick.
It is a thick boy.
Yeah, but it's not that thick though. But I mean, when you think, the one thing about the X1 Fold is, one, it's built to be durable. It's a ThinkPad name, so it has to actually be like drop resistant. And I told you they put potato chips in the screen and all this. So it needs to meet certain standards. So and that's part of the reasons why the bezels are like that. But it also has a huge battery, right? So they want this thing to. I feel like this is a pragmatic and practical folding PC. Like, they don't want you to be like, it's really beautiful and cool. It lasts 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because that would be like, that's kind of what you actually expect from like this cutting edge technology. It's like, it has really neat stuff, but it does this thing terribly, therefore you can't use it. I actually feel like everything they've done with the X1 Fold is sort of like, it looks really cool. You get these benefits, and you can actually use it all day, and it'll be a real computer for you, not just some gimmick. And I think that's why it's a little bit thicker. But as I said to others, when you hold it and you use it, the last thing you're thinking about is, oh, it's thick. You're just amazed by this thing, how cool it is, and how awesome it feels in your hand. So, but the Duo, and the Neo are sort of exceptions here. They really are thin. But then it raises that question: how's the battery life?
Yeah, this is probably isn't a good representation because it's so early and the software isn't done. But I've been hearing that the Neo's battery life isn't amazing.
The Neo?
I don't know about the Duo, but the Neo's not
Yeah,
too
it wouldn't
great.
surprise me. I'd also be very cautious because it's running Lakefield, and Lakefield is still, as far
It's
as I
yeah,
know,
nothing's done. You can't judge in its
yeah.
current state.
I mean, case in point, AMD announced the new Ryzen 4000 series for laptops, and a bunch of laptops were announced at CES. And one thing that's missing from all of them are realistic battery life estimates, and it's because they don't exist yet. All that stuff is still being optimized because we're still a few months out from it being released. So we don't actually know anything about AMD, how good it's going to be for battery. I'd have to say the same thing with Lakefield. But that said, yeah, I mean, the Neo's got probably a 2K screen. It's super thin. I don't know. What would you be acceptable for that? 5 hours? I think they could. Like
It's
real world usage of 5 hours, I think would almost be
That's
impressive.
I think that's actually pretty good. 5 hours is more than a work day for most people. As long as you can get it to bedtime, on in like 10%, 5%, then I think the battery life is fine. Obviously, it's not a marathon runner. Like, because there's some phones out these days that get 6, 7 hours screen on time, which is very very good. But 5 hours would be more than acceptable for the thinness of the device.
And it'll have fast charge, of course, too.
Yeah, and if it has wireless charge as well, then you just plop it down somewhere. 10 minutes, good to go.
Someone's asking, is it me or is a legacy Edge browser design elements taking too long to get to the Edgium version? I'm not confident they'll add at this point. I'm not either, but I think that's a conscious decision.
In fact,
First,
they're not adding it. I know that they're not going to add all that back. They think the Microsoft Edge, the new Microsoft Edge, is fluent design, which is it just isn't. But they've said, oh yeah, no, the fluent design effects, they're there. Like they aren't. They're just not there. But that's Microsoft for you, unfortunately.
yeah. In terms of the other features, like set aside tabs, I'm pretty sure that's not coming over either. Because I just don't think it was, for one, I don't think a lot of people used it. And for some of us, including Zach and I think we yelled at it more than anything just because of its location near the back button or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We'd always, you'd have 20 tabs open. You go to like hit, like, what is it? I think it's the home key or something like that. And like all your tabs just disappeared. You're like, no, that's not what I meant. So.
Yeah, that's a lot of people say to me on Twitter, "Oh, I love set tabs aside. It's the only reason I use Edge." I'm like, you must be a Windows Phone user because like no one else
Yeah.
uses that. I hated it so much. Set tabs aside was Edge's worst feature. I'm saying it officially. It should never have been there.
Any thoughts on ARM education piece running Snapdragon 7C? I mean, nothing's been announced yet. There's still this interesting question where will Qualcomm allow non-LTE versions of the 7C to occur? In the past, Qualcomm has told me no on these chips, but then HoloLens 2 doesn't have LTE, so clearly they make exceptions. I think that the 7C, if you can take out LTE, will cut the cost a little bit more. And then, yeah, something like an education or even a Surface Go becomes much more viable for that price point. Mind you, they're supposed to be hitting that $399 price range for these. I don't know how you get there while keeping LTE, which seems like a superfluous feature for some environments, including education or even the Surface Go. I want the option there for the Surface Go, but I don't think schools need that. Haven't heard anything yet. And it's going to get complicated because Intel still wants to push down into that range. AMD, I would say, with the Ryzen 4000 series, as well as they have some new low-cost chips coming out too, is going to go for that market. And that's so far where we're seeing a lot of the AMD Ryzen stuff happen is sort of in the mid-range area. And Qualcomm, you can't accuse them of being cheap or low cost or affordable. So far they haven't. 7C may change that, but nothing to report yet for new devices there.
Zach mentioned in one of his articles about notifications being a pain on the Duo, having to open it every time you want to get it out of your pocket. Could you not pocket it in the folded open mode as it's Gorilla Glass on both sides? Yeah, you could. If you really want to, you can have it folded with both screens on the outside, and you can just use it as a single screen phone and put it in your pocket in that form if you really want to. And that will get around that problem. But I don't think everybody will want to do that. I think lots of people would like to protect their screens at all costs, and closing the device is how they're going to do that. So when it is on the desk and it buzzes, you can look over to your closed duo and be like, well, I don't know who it is. I guess I'll
Yeah.
never know unless I move my hand and open it. What do you think?
Uh,
I've read an article this week that said the new Xbox could be dual booting Xbox and Windows 10 so you can run Steam PC games.
hmm.
Do you think that could be possible? I mean, on a technical level, that's absolutely possible. I don't think Microsoft would do that, though, because Xbox is a lockdown platform and Microsoft wants to keep DRM and privacy. They want to make sure that people aren't hacking into the Xbox and downloading games for free and stuff. And having it dual boot to Windows 10, which is an open platform more or less, which allows you to get access to things like the file system, that would be a gateway to just letting hackers just break into the Xbox OS and essentially unlock the OS to do all sorts of things that Microsoft doesn't want you to do. So I can't see that happening. What I can see happening is a kind of locked down version of that, in the sense that with C Shell and the Universal Shell Microsoft's working on, there could be a desktop mode which, just running in the current Xbox OS, changes the Shell UI to be more like a desktop with a taskbar and a start menu, and you can launch Xbox games through that UI and use a keyboard and mouse. Which could also extend to Win32 games at some point as well, since Windows Core can emulate Win32 through sandboxing and containers. That definitely could be a way to do it, but I don't see the option of running full Windows 10 on an Xbox happening, because that just opens the gate to just too many attacks from hackers that Microsoft doesn't want to have to deal with.
Yeah, I would think that's weird. Someone asked me, like, they're talking about like consoles and Windows 10 PCs and exclusives and why Xbox needs to have exclusives. They're like, because it needs to differentiate from a PC. Now I'm thinking, like, it's a pretty clear differentiation. The reason I don't set up a freaking desktop PC in my living room to boot into Windows 10 and grab a keyboard and mouse to play my couch, like, not to mention the cost is super expensive to do that, but like, it's just inconvenient. It's the reason why consoles exist. It's like, it's a block. You do a single plug to the wall, HDMI, and it costs like $400, and then you just play games on it, like with a controller. Like, that's all you need. That's the only differentiation you need. This idea that I want exclusive content on one device and not the other. Hell no, I do not want that. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world. I hate exclusives. I think it's terrible. I don't care if it's good for a company. I'm not interested in Microsoft's bottom line if they sell more consoles. I just want to play games, man. Don't make me buy one device over the other.
Oh, did you see this yesterday, Dan? I didn't even know they announced this. Microsoft announces 2 Snapdragon 7C PCs for education with 4G LTE starting at $300.
Yeah, I think I did forward that to the news team.
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah.
$300? That's cheap as chips, almost.
Yeah.
That's Surface Go territory. Woohoo! Yeah, they're kind of ugly, though, those devices. My goodness. They are for education, though, so I'll allow it. Is the next Xbox running on Windows Core? So it has Windows Core in it. It's still Xbox OS. Xbox OS has always been this weird hybrid of different operating systems. But now with Scarlet, and maybe they'll backport this to Xbox One, but with Scarlet, it will also have Windows Core part of it, so it can do things like containerizing Win32 programs and stuff. When is Microsoft going to upgrade Windows 10 to the new UI, or to a new UI? That's a good question. We don't know. Microsoft, we know, is working on a new UI for Windows 10X. That UI could eventually make it over to legacy Windows 10 as well. Microsoft hasn't said that that's the plan, but there's no technical reason why it couldn't happen. It's just whether or not they do that is the question, because a lot of Windows 10 users don't really want to change. They know how Windows works today, and I don't think they want an entire new user experience to just come in and change things up. And I think that's half the reason why Windows Next exists. It's a new platform for Microsoft to innovate and push new user experiences without affecting those who like Windows 10 as it is currently and don't want it to change. Do you think Microsoft will add stories to Skype? No. I do not think they will add stories to Skype. Thoughts on the Carbon announcement? I have no real thoughts other than, yeah, it's a great announcement. Obviously, there's no downside to it. Being carbon negative by 2030 carbon negative by 2050. Sorry, is a great thing for the world. Finally, we're caring about the world a bit. The problem I have with this is that we shouldn't be patting companies on the back for this. This should just be, they should be doing it. This is, the world is at a point now which we need to care about it more than ever at this point.
I think it's okay to give them a little bit of a pat, but yeah, it's sort of also like,
it should just be,
it's sort of like,
this is the way.
Zach and I decided we're not going to discriminate against people anymore. It's like,
exactly, yeah.
It's the old like, have you stopped beating your wife? It's like you should just, I raised my kids well. And that was like, who did that? Was not Dave Chappelle. Was that Dave Chappelle? No, that was Chris Rock. He's talking about like, I raised my kids well. I was like, you're supposed to raise your kids well. What do you want, exactly. A cookie? I always side rant. I always get funny when people like put on Twitter in their profile, they're like proud dad or something like that. Like, you're supposed to be a proud dad. Like, also, you're not getting credit for being a dad. You know what's hard is not having kids. Try doing that for like 30 years.
Yeah,
very difficult. But and also, I don't think you can judge yourself as being a good father. That's not your call.
Yeah, no.
If your kids want to go, he was a good dad, I believe them. You going, I'm a good dad? No, sorry. You don't get to say that. Sorry.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, but the problem with being carbon negative is that you put carbon into the environment to begin with, so now you've got to bring it all back. And like I said, that is a great thing. The problem is, it should never have gotten to this point, and that's sort of my opinion on the matter.
Yeah, this is actually where let's get totally sidetracked now. This is actually where an argument for government intervention in the economy is actually a good thing. It's always been the case in the United States that, you look at the internet itself. The internet started off through DARPA. It was a way for government agencies to stay connected in case if there's a nuclear war. And then education departments started using it because they were often doing research that was top secret. And that whole backbone eventually became public, and that's what we now know as the internet.
And then memes were born.
Yeah, and then we got memes. And then the U.S. highway system. People think that like we just agreed as a country, like, yeah, we should just have like massive roads that connect all the states. Nope, that was a defense thing as well. It was the idea that we can move tanks in case there's a war. We can move armies and everything around the country with ease. So it was done, I think it was by Eisenhower. But there's a good reasoning that government should be sort of the one pushing for this stuff. So yeah, it's nice to see. I've been reading. It's a really good book recommendation. It's called Lab Rats. It just came out a few months ago, and it's about venture capital culture out in California and how it's basically ruining work for everybody. But it's this idea of like, I forgot what I was going to say now about it. Oh yeah, that's right. There's a lot of Facebook, Google, even Apple. A lot of these companies are brought up as examples of like how they do things wrong, either for environment or the way they treat employees and this and that. Surprisingly, I never see Microsoft sometimes is mentioned, but they're not mentioned as one of these companies that are doing this kind of behavior. The closest I've seen was LinkedIn. The founder of LinkedIn apparently is a jerk, and but Microsoft bought LinkedIn, but now he's not running it, so it's fine. But in Microsoft, you can make a lot of criticisms about, but their culture in terms of being a good steward, I actually think it's pretty much valid. Like, it's hard to find a lot of that's not saying they're perfect. And if you talk to employees, there are still problems internally, but they seem to be a pretty good company for doing this stuff. So it's nice that Microsoft's kind of leading there. Yeah, the Dan Rants podcast. Yeah, sorry. I didn't even have a beer yet.
Is Microsoft ever going to rename Windows 10? No. There's no need.
Yeah, we've gone over this before. Just calling it Windows, I get it, makes sense, unless you're doing SEO and search optimization.
Tell you what, it makes sense. It makes sense in 50 years when there's no other version of Windows 10 in support. Or Windows in support, sorry, not just Windows 10.
Or we don't have Windows.
Yeah, Windows is dead, yeah.
I mean, Zach and I both know. I've received emails from companies be like, yeah, like a quote on a Windows for our building.
Yeah, that's true.
They think Windows Central is like, we deal in Windows, right? Yeah. Obviously.
Window panes, window doors, everything. We do it all.
Right. I often felt like giving them quotes.
I bet there's like tech, like not tech, like just industry conferences for window panes. Look, check out this new glass technology we've got in.
Oh, but I've always thought about this. It's sort of like people like you ever like just pass like a carpet store
Yeah.
and you're thinking like that must be like this is where I'm like I'm so glad I have my job. Like I could imagine like working in a carpet store because there like some people probably don't care that they work here, but there probably are like a good percentage of those workers who are like enthusiast rug people, right? Like they actually take their job seriously.
Yeah.
They follow like the trends.
Yeah.
They're like, like, have you seen this latest rug that's coming
Look at
out?
how
And
it's woven. Oh.
yeah, like check out this new fabric that DuPont made. It's wild, like,
Yeah.
and they have the same conversations about like rugs, and they probably do go to trade shows, and like, it's just like it boggles my mind because there's no world where I could see myself being interested in that. But then I think about like how we nerd out on stuff every week here on this podcast.
So I'll tell you what blew my mind this week. So Ignite the Tour was happening at the Excel in London, which is a huge convention centre. It's so big that most conferences don't hire out the whole place. They only hire out one or two halls, and then the rest of it's open to other conferences to happen. So on Thursday we were at Ignite, but as we were leaving, I think we were walking back, and we walked past another convention that was happening, EAG or something. But basically, what it was, it's a convention for entertainment systems. I'm not talking about like consoles. I'm talking about like Las Vegas style, like gambling machines. Yeah. This whole place was just look. I walked into Las Vegas, and it's just people there like, we're selling these machines. If you own a hotel or somebody who's scouting for these machines, take a look, come buy them. Sega was there. They had a whole bunch of machines. I was like, this is the most insane thing I've ever seen. It's just a whole bunch of gambling and arcade machines. Like Halo Fireteam was there. And it made me open my eyes to a whole new world of conferences that are just for every type. People were saying to me, "Oh yeah, no, they do things like trains. You've got train conferences."
Yeah, there's a hotel nearby here in Massachusetts that they would regularly have conferences, and you would see it, and it'd be like, welcome National Northeast Medium Association, like the people who are mediums or like rock collector. Like it was just like, and you think about it, there's always a hierarchy in those groups too. Like that person, that guy's legend,
yeah,
or girl, they're a legend, in this. Yeah, they've been doing this for like 30 years. They know everything. Like, I don't know. This is stuff I think about all the time, but. Because people have to look at us too and be like, "Why these guys talk about?"
Who cares about the latest laptops? Yeah,
right.
Which is why my girlfriend's one of those people.
Yeah, of course. Oh yeah, no, same here, right? I mean, I show a new laptop. She basically like, holds
whatever.
it. Yeah, sees how light it is, and she's like, "No, it's garbage." She like, does not care. I'm like, what? I'm like, dude, check this out. Yeah, it's fun. It's all about having perspective. All right, did we miss any other questions here while we're ranting about everything? Do you think we'll have a 128-bit CPU in a personal PC other in a Cray? I don't know what that means. 128-bit CPU. Not anytime soon. I don't see any huge benefit from that. I think what's going to happen, that would drive up the cost, and then you have all sorts of like compatibility. We have to go through the whole 32 to 64-bit thing, which, I just want to bring up real quickly because people talk about ARM64 and its slow adoption. And when I was going back to the Windows 7 stuff, and so Windows 7 came out in 2009. And what was actually really interesting about Windows 7, it was the first 64-bit operating system for consumers. I mean, if you go back to Windows 2000, if you're cool like me, you were installing 64-bit systems. You also weren't running half your peripherals because nothing had drivers. But 2009, Windows 7, 64-bit came out. Chrome browser, 64-bit came out 5 years later. It was late 2014. So it took 5 years for Chrome to go to 64-bit. And so it's really interesting because now we're going to ARM64, right? And so, Chrome is still not 64-bit or ARM64, even though they have the code, they could kind of release it. But it goes to show you how long some of these things could take. So switching to 128, I think, would also be kind of problematic. But I think what would happen first, and I think the word we're moving towards, and a lot of people agree with this, is cloud computing. This idea that pretty soon the operating system will live in the cloud. You're going to have basically a dummy terminal device that's just connected. You'll have some local assets, but a lot of your work and stuff will just be synced that way. And that will allow really thin devices. You can offload a lot of the processing in. You don't need to have intense GPUs and stuff like that on devices. So I think that would happen first before this need to go to 128-bit on anything.
I also think it's unnecessary. 64-bit.
Sure.
It's not like 64-bit processors are, at the end of their life cycle. We pushed them too hard. We can't do it anymore.
Right. Yeah, it does. But I have to admit, even I think it's weird. I think it goes weird both ways. I think it's weird to think that someday you might have a computer that technically doesn't have like a full operating system. It's just all
Mm,
streamed from the cloud.
yeah.
Because it's like if you ever lose electricity, it's just like
Well,
that
or
thing is
internet, yeah.
useless. At the same time, I could also imagine 20 years from now, people like used to run everything like just on the machine, and you had like a server basically built into this thing that you would carry around with a huge GPU, and it would generate tons of heat, and you would need a 230-watt adapter to plug into the wall. Like, I think I could see people looking at that as being insane as well. So, I can see it working both ways. I'm curious how it pans out. Let's set a reminder in the year 2040. Zach and
Yeah.
I, let's have this conversation again.
Are you expecting Windows 10 X to be a huge leap forward in efficiency and modernization of the OS, or just a slightly improved Windows 10? Oh, I'm expecting it to be a huge leap forward in efficiency and modernization. It's Windows core. Like I said, this is a rebuild of Windows, much more modular. All the legacy stuff's gone. Everything legacy runs in a contained space now. It's much faster at Windows Update. So, trust me, assuming everything ships as I've read it to ship, Windows 10X will be a very modern operating system with fluid animations, beautiful UI, update, modern back-end systems with Windows Update, which is much faster. It's just better in every regard, in my opinion. It gets rid of all the old crap that just nobody needs. It just comes with Windows these days. And it focuses on the core experiences that people do use today, like browsing the web or running Office and just using lightweight experiences.
So it's asking, what are the biggest requests for improvements to Surface headphones, the current ones on the market? It's a good question. My biggest feature, number one, make them fold. One reason I don't take them as much, I like the Surface headphones, but I also am privileged. I have the Bose QC35-2s and the Sony MX3000s, whatever they're called, both fold up. It's really important for traveling, right? And the ability to sneak these into a bag is crucial. I will say to the Surface headphones credit, if you put them on your neck and just dangle them, they're actually the most comfortable out of those. The Bose and the Sonys kind of strangle me, and I hate having stuff around my neck. But I really think they need to fold. So that's the biggest thing. Improved battery life is also important. Both the Bose and the that said though, the new Bose that just came out don't fold. So I don't know. I guess people are okay with that. Those seem very fragile to me. I'll also say battery life. Both the Bose and the Sonys get way better battery life. I believe I want to say the Bose are 20 hours and the Sonys can get like close to 30 hours, whereas Surface headphones are like 14 hours. Now that's not a it does it's a Type C plug too, which is really cool. Not many people travel more than 14 hours. That said, I did twice last year travel on 16-hour flights. And when technically the Surface headphones couldn't last a single flight in that regard. That's the exception. But obviously, going with the Bose or the Sonys, I wouldn't have that issue. Other than that, the actual ergonomic design I thought was great. They are still a little bit large, but I think if they made them the black versions, it would be less obvious. I don't know, Zach, what would you change about Surface headphones?
I'd make them smaller. They are huge headphones. That's the biggest one for me.
Mm.
If they were maybe slightly thinner on the actual cups instead of because they're sort of like Princess Leia buns when you wear them. If they were just a bit closer to your head, that'd be nice. What else would I change? I would like to have haptic feedback for the actual dials. That'd be really nice because right now they're sort of smooth. And
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
The problem with what I have is I always forget which way is the right way for the noise cancelling. I'm
That's
like,
a good point.
is that the right way? No, I can hear everyone. Quick, turn it the other way.
Right.
So like a haptic could help with that because haptic one way would be one feeling, and haptic the other way would feel slightly different, perhaps, and that you'd be able to tell which way you're turning it. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really have too many complaints outside of that. It would be nice to have a dedicated wearables app though, Microsoft.
Yeah, if we can get that someday.
Yeah.
Also, I did post a photo like last week on Twitter. So Panos Panay and the Surface team were at CES, and they always are. I always kind of see them wandering around, but I actually saw them this time. It was a couple feet from them. It was me and Rich Woods from Neo when we're hanging out. We're like, wait, is that Panos? And it was like they were acting like a tour group, and they actually had a person with a banner with a Surface thing on it, and they were they were going a tour of the Razer booth, and from what I recall, Panos Panay and the founder or CEO Min Lin are actually friends. They've actually worked together before. Min wasn't there though, but they were getting a tour of that booth. And what was weird was they all had Surface headphones on, and so this led speculation. And there's two things I can think of. They're either using a translation feature and testing that out in the wild, which might have been possible, or they were using the amplify feature for hearing voices.
Or they're just super antisocial.
Or just super, but it was weird. Like they were all walking around. They all had Surface headphones. It's like, wow, look at these fanboy. Oh, wait, that's yeah. Steve Batchy was there, and I saw Panos.
Did you talk to them?
No, because they like so. I was talking to Rich about that. I was like, should we go talk to them? Because just like fangirl out with them. But they look pretty busy and intense. And if you ever see Panos,
They're
like
working. You actually caught them whilst they were working.
I actually talked to, so I know the Razer PR people pretty well too. And I was just like, so yeah, the service guys. And he's like, that guy is so intense. And I'm like, yeah, when you talk to Panos like in person, he like stares through your soul, man.
Yeah.
It's really like intense. And it was funny to hear this guy say the exact same thing. So, but yeah, we didn't go bother them. They just kind of went through, and they look like they're on a tight schedule. So.
You should have been like, hey, Panos, show me that duo you've got in your pocket, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm 99% sure he had a duo with them, of course.
If Windows 10 X proves successful, do you think we'll see Microsoft rebuild all of Windows 10 on top of Windows Core? No. If Windows 10 X proves successful, Microsoft will aim to push Windows 10 X as the new version of Windows. Windows 10 as it exists will always be this way. Microsoft is never going to change that because there's too many people who rely on it in its current state. If you are somebody who likes Windows 10 X, Microsoft will tell you to go and buy a Windows 10 X device. And that's how Microsoft will slowly move over to Windows 10 X being the primary platform, because most people don't need full Windows 10. So just buy a Windows 10 X device.
Someone's pointing out Surface headphones can improve noise canceling. Yeah, I mean, I didn't mention that because I feel like that's a given. I feel like whenever Surface headphones 2 come out, it's going to be, the audio will be better, the noise canceling will be better. I just expect that to be, so I think that was obvious to mention. Will we get Neo alternative devices from OEMs like HP and Dell? Well, yeah, I mean, Dell showed off a concept device, two concept devices last week. One was Duet, and the other one was, I'm forgetting the name now, but one was a dual screen, the other one was a foldable display. So Dell was clearly thinking about it. Microsoft already announced this. I mean, this isn't an open secret that HP, Dell, and I believe Asus and Lenovo all have devices in these categories coming. Part of this is also done with Intel. Intel also has these devices internally. They make internal prototypes, and then they kind of go out to companies who then get to riff on it. So yeah, this is like, you're going to see a bunch of devices, which is whatever the Neo comes out and is priced at. You may be like, oh my God, it's stupid expensive. That's where companies like HP, Dell, Lenovo will come in and be like, here's our version. And in some cases, I think they'll do things better. They may get better battery life. They may have better screens. They'll have new technology. They'll do something different that will be enticing, just like it is now with laptops and ultrabooks, right? So that's definitely going to happen. And I also think dual screen devices, I've been told dual screen devices are cheaper to make than foldable display devices. So while $2,500 for the ThinkPad X1 Fold is expensive, that doesn't necessarily mean Surface Neo is going to be $2,500 or even more expensive. It could actually be cheaper than that. So yeah.
When will we see Windows 10 X devices with ARM64 system on chips? There's no ETA for that. Microsoft does say it will be coming eventually. If I had to guess, I'd say end of 2021 into 2022. And the reason
for laptops,
ARM64 Windows 10 X devices.
Oh, okay.
And the reason for that is because the reason they're not doing ARM64 at launch is because the emulation layer required to run Win32 programs. I say emulation, the containerized layer. So essentially what Windows 10 X is doing when it runs a Win32 program is spinning up a legacy version of Windows 10 and placing that desktop app on the desktop of Windows 10 X. So you don't see the legacy shell and stuff, which obviously takes a lot. So not only Windows 10 X at that point is now booting an entire OS in the background to run that legacy program, and then if you on ARM devices, you're throwing in a layer of emulation on top of that. So then it then, although it's running a native version of Windows 10 X, it then has to boot up a container which has an emulated version of Windows 10, so it can run the emulated app, and it would just slow down performance. And what Microsoft needs to get right out of the gate with Windows 10 X is first impressions. If Windows 10 X is launching on Intel devices where there is no emulation involved in that sense, performance should hopefully be fine. So reviewers won't be like, "Oh, it's terrible. You know, don't buy it." Reviewers can't be saying that, because if they are saying that, then nobody will buy Windows 10 X devices, and it'll be dead in the water, just like Windows Vista and Windows 8. So first impressions have to be really, really positive for Windows 10 X.
Teams for life, particularly since there's going to be a Teams advert for the Super Bowl. Good question. I haven't heard much about this, Zach. Have you heard any more about Teams for Life? That, for those who don't know, Teams for Life is rumored to be basically a consumer-focused version of Microsoft Teams, where families can kind of use it as a broad communication device.
I have not heard anything specific. We might hear more about it in April, but I genuinely don't know too much about what it is as a whole, unfortunately.
And Teams is getting that walkie-talkie feature, which you've lamented, but I thought it was pretty dope. So it's sort of like the idea of it's you push a button and you can live talk to people through the app to your team.
The reason when I read that headline, I just pictured in my head, just ow. So you need an edit. It needs doing edit on your recent editorial. Like, damn it.
Yeah, don't worry. The idea our company would be smart enough to actually switch to Teams is probably never going to happen. No, so, but I think it's a really neat feature. I'm excited. I really do hope Microsoft does do a Teams thing for consumers. I feel like there's a market for that. I really do. I feel like for families, for organizing. I think it's great, this idea you'd have a shared calendar or shared chat room. It works with your OneNote and Office, and families can use it to stay together and share photos and OneDrive. I feel like Microsoft actually has the ability here to pull this all together into a single app. I mean, it's what they've done with Enterprise. And I feel like Google is not. It's funny, Google could in theory do this, but I know a lot of people like to put Google on this pedestal, but at the same time, like, Google has a lot of failed dumb products that don't work together. They're like switching messaging apps every 2 years and getting rid of things. And, just this week, they're going to EOL, was it Android apps or Chrome apps, on the Chromebooks, and, PWAs are still not mainstream on that device, which is weird. You'd think PWAs would be like already a major product on a Chromebook, but I feel like Microsoft could actually pull this together if they want to, but sorry, no info yet. Quickly, any rumors about Surface Go 2 and Surface Go X? No. My speculation is Surface Go 2 will probably be a Snapdragon 7C device. I like to think it is. And yeah, there's a story that's coming out, yesterday, some education PCs running Snapdragon 7C will be $300. So we bumped that up by $100 for some more quality parts from the Surface team. Like, you're in that ballpark, right? So that could totally happen. But we don't have anything official yet. But that would solve a lot of problems. Surface Go X, never heard of it. No reason to think it's, that could be a Surface Go 2. I don't know. Hopefully this spring. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see like a Surface Go 2, like I said, late summer. Because Qualcomm takes a while to get their manufacturing down for their chips yet. So,
any idea if we will see a next gen of Windows anytime soon? Yeah, actually, Windows 10X is the next gen of Windows. So, in fact, it's already been announced.
Yeah, Cortana will be removed for your country on January 28th. That's for the app on Android and iOS. We've known about that for a while now, but then the question is, how do you set up your headphones? And that's why they're coming out with a separate Surface Headphones app. We haven't heard anything about it coming out for January 28th or around there, but yeah, fingers crossed, that happens. But it was always weird. We've talked about this in the past, to have a Cortana app to connect your headphones. It just wasn't an obvious thing. I think they just need a dedicated headphones app, and that's what's happening. We were told that is happening, but no ETA yet on that.
What's your opinion about Duo and Neo final product changes? There won't be any product changes. That's just it. And my opinion on that is, yeah, that's fine. I like the look of the Surface Neo and Duo in their current forms. I'm not I'm not one of those people who will freak out over large bezels. I think they're fine on the Duo and Neo. I'm happy with it. I think that's it. Don't think there's any more questions here. Do you know if when the new Edge will replace Edge Legacy on Xbox? Microsoft hasn't given us any ETA. They've said they're working on it, but they've not said when or how that will happen. Google Chrome ARM64 this year? I'd be surprised if it's not this year. We've known it's been ready for a long time. I think they're just being stubborn at this point. Dan and Zach, do you still have your Lumia with you? It's not in my immediate vicinity, but there are Lumias in this room somewhere. I think they're in a box over there somewhere. Collecting dust, because that's all they're good for now. I might as well dump them. I'll just recycle them. They can be reused as something more useful.
Lumia is in my heart. Actually, I have my Lumia 50 right here, along
Oh,
with
you
my,
do? Look at that.
but they're not like on or being used.
No, they're just sitting there. Do you know if File Explorer is going to have tabs? I do not. I do know Windows Next has its own File Explorer. I don't know how far ahead that is, whether it's going to be a comparable or a worthy replacement to the legacy File Explorer on Windows 10 today. But I do know there are plans to have one in Windows 10X. Cool. I think that's pretty much it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back same time, same place next week, as always. But until then, follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated on all the latest ongoings on Microsoft. And we'll also tweet out when we're live, as per usual. But until then, we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.